speak, Alexa, of your province, this looks like a very expensive photo op regarding Elbows Up. The Quebec Liquor Board is getting ready to destroy $300,000 worth of American wine, I believe it is. Alexa, what's going on?
Elbows up. So at first they removed the American alcohol because they say that they wanted to send a strong message to the American and they wanted to do an impact on them. But at the end of the day, we paid taxpayer for those alcohol that we will destroy. Where actually is hurting the American is actually hurting the taxpayer in the Quebec province for doing this. And why didn't just say, we will use that alcohol that we already paid for and we just sell it for a cheaper price. So that will give a good thing for the taxpayer, and we will in the same time not buy and purchase more from the American. But as of right now, why removing product that we already paid for? It's not hurting them, it's hurting us.
That's a great point, Alexa. They're doing, I think, Melanie, virtue signaling, but on the taxpayer dime. And they're even going a further step than Ontario did earlier this year. I call it Doug Ford's $1 billion photo op. They're pulling all the California wines and the Kentucky bourbons off the shelves of the LCBO stores. That was more than $1 billion worth of stock. What I'm saying, Melanie, is that I know we're not economists on this panel discussion, but it would seem to me, even if you subscribe to we're not going to do any business with the Americans when it comes to alcohol, wouldn't it have made sense just to sell off the existing inventory instead of plucking it off the shelf, putting it in a warehouse, which costs money, and sending the bill to the ever-beleaguered taxpayer? I think this is virtue signaling madness on our dime, Melanie.
Well, I don't think you need to be economists to think about this in other ways, because when I read this story, immediately I thought of Canada. Canada right now wants to be this. We talk about elbows up. It's all about solidarity against these tariffs with America. We're one big family. We're all in this together. But if you think about the metaphor of a family, if Canada's a family, our family is tightening the belts. We're not doing well. The economy's not doing well. We've got to pinch our pennies. And if that's the case, are you going to retaliate against, let's say, a neighbor that you're having a fight with by throwing out all your groceries? You're not going to do that because we don't have any money. We don't have things to spare because of TIFs. So I would like more Canadians to think of it this way. If we're all a big family, is your family going to throw out all of your belongings because you're having an argument with a neighbor?
It's insane. And Alexa, even if it's a matter of some of these products have a best before date, okay.
It's alcohol.
It's
alcohol.
But I heard this just coming into headquarters today. Evidently, rosé in a box. There was a finite time, and that's one of the products they're going to pour down the drain. But if that's the case, put it on clearance, 50% off, move the merchandise, at least get something back for the provincial coffers. Why won't they do that?
It's Quebec. I'm not really surprised. Sorry for saying that, but this is Quebec. I don't think logical is part of their plan. But alcohol, it's still good after the due date, I would say. It's alcohol. And so instead of I would say putting in clearance, at least getting some money from those products that we already paid for, that will help taxpayer because we actually spend that money. So who is going to pay us back? And what they are going to do with those alcohol? And first of all, it's not the first time that the SAQ, it's like the LCBO, the monopoly of the government for the alcohol. It's not the first time that they are under the radar for some scandal like that about alcohol. So I'm really surprised that we are seeing this again. Not really, but I know that a lot of people are really mad. a lot of people are really mad to not have access to bourbon because it's from US. And
Yeah.
so, yeah.
You're looking at one right now. But Alexa, in the Department of Silver Linings, thanks to Premier Ford doing that ridiculous move of pulling bourbon, well, guess what? Earlier this month, I went over to Detroit, and you know what? I discovered a new bourbon, the best bourbon I've ever had. It's called Booker's. It's not cheap. And by the way, I'm not being paid to say this. This is not an endorsement. This is just from the heart. So in other words, you know what, Dougie, thank you. Thank you for taking away all the other bourbons that you sold at the LCBO, because you made me discover what might be the best bourbon I've ever had. So shame on you. But
And by the way,
yes.
I went to Plattsburgh recently, and what they were saying is like, we see a lot of Canadian coming here and buying some bourbon and some American product because they cannot have it like in Montreal or in Canada. So we actually simulate their business.
Yes.
While here in Canada, we are penalizing our business.
You know, Melanie, I'm going to extend Alexa's point even further in terms of the insanity of it all. She's talking about Plattsburgh, New York. That's one of the crossover points to Quebec. And we've got to, you know, get creative in hiding our bottle, find some kind of nook or cranny in our car or trunk in case we're pulled over for inspection, because they'll throw the book at you. But if you're an illegal alien, hey, come on in. The RCMP will reinvent themselves as bellhops. Can you make sense of this?
Well, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is back to, why is there even a government organized board that's controlling what liquor you can and cannot purchase?
Oh, yeah.
Right? If the government is not going to be, obviously not going to be responsible fiscally with the products that they buy, that they would rather destroy them rather than recoup money or even put them in storage, because Alexa is correct. Alcohol ages, and people spend a lot of money on aged alcohol, so it's not going off. Right? So if the government's not going to be responsible with these boards, and why do we even have these boards in the first place? I recall, wasn't it in Ontario, the LCBO had big protests before, and I think people were even asking, why do we even have an LCBO? Why can't people purchase alcohol themselves?
I'll tell you that because I've covered the LCBO for some 30 years, Melanie, and they based their entire existence post-prohibition on social responsibility. It's a phrase that's meaningless, because when there is secret shopper surveys, LCBO versus convenience stores versus the beer store, the LCBO tends to have the worst uptick rates. We did a hidden camera expose of a 15-year-old boy buying hard liquor at 3 LCBOs, no muss, no fuss. So it's built on a lie, the premise that they're socially responsible. Big business, you see, they're not government. They'll sell the booze to the youngsters when the exact opposite is true. There's two things government has a role in when it comes to the booze business: regulation and taxation. That's it. No warehousing of it, no retailing of it. That is the private sector. So that, you know, it's outrageous that government, for this one product, and well, not just that one product, lottery tickets too. They have a government monopoly on that as well. They have no business being there except for the regulations and the taxes on those products.